But I was here yesterday and I saw this aisle, and one of the sounds of my time with Joe that's missing but could be present is the sound of cornhole bags landing on a platform. That crisp beanbag thunk. In Joe's case, it also meant a degree of silence, as his bags, more often than not, sailed straight through the hole. Whenever you're ready, boys. Folks here today, and it's time for us to take a few minutes to hear some remembrances. We are going to Keegan's afterwards, so we probably can't hear from everybody, but Hank, do you want to get us started? Where's Hank sitting? There he is. I think he's got something for us.
This is a beautiful service. A lot of beautiful people here. It's been so well done, and forgive me for bringing up the amateur hour. 4 or 5 days or so before Joe's passing, Kathleen sent me a picture of Robert, Mark, and Tim with their instruments playing around Joe's bedside. And it was one of the most beautiful pictures I ever saw. I had to send it right out to my friends. It was just an awesome sight. Thank you guys so much for being such a big part of his life and sharing that music with him. Kathleen, thank you so much for taking me into your house, your home the last few days, and allowing me to spend them with you and Sam. That was great. Joe frequently goaded me into singing. And at every family occasion, he would bring a guitar, we would get together and sing a couple of songs together. On one of my last visits up here, maybe 2 years ago or so, Joe made me come sing with him in the choir, sit right over here, which was quite an experience, and I'll never forget it. And I'm grateful to Joe for all that he did for me. So anyway, Joe, 4, 5, or 6 years ago, Joe said, "Hey, have you heard this song? I want you to listen to this song." And it's called Go Rest High on That Mountain by Vince Gill. And I listened to it so many times with him, over and over. And he said, "I want you to sing that for me at my funeral." And this was 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Come on. But if I didn't make the attempt at it, I would regret it probably, because it was always there. So it's not prepared, it's a cappella. If anybody knows the chorus and wants to sing along with me, I'd be most grateful. Come right up here, Doreen. That'd be awesome. Doreen. Wasn't it beautiful when she did that Warren Zevon song with the band? So here we go. Bear with me. I know your life on earth was troubled. Only you could know the pain. You weren't afraid to face the devil. You were no stranger to the rain. Go rest high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth is done. Go to heaven shouting love for the Father and the Son. Oh, how we cried that day you left us. We gathered round your grave to grieve. I wish I could see the angels' faces when they heard your sweet voice sing. So go rest high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth is done. Go to heaven shouting love for the Father and the Son. Go to heaven shouting love for the Father and the Son.
The spirits are challenged today. We've experienced an incomprehensible loss. Joe is not here to guide us with a soft-spoken voice, but we can still hear it as a warm echo in a familiar place. He's not here to sing away our troubles, to lift us up out of ourselves, as he always did, to remind us that it's all about all of us. Kathleen, your loss is our loss. But what strength we have is from the example of your relationship with Joe. Let it give us strength to bear an unbearable loss. There was a special way Joe raised the energy when he entered a room, as if the dimmer switch was turned up. What he exuded, the gift he shared, came from a place not everyone has access to. His infectious laugh, the forgiving nod, and when necessary, the steel resolve he exerted, followed by a bouquet of forgiveness. You can ask his bandmates about that one. I had the honor to introduce Joe and the Lo-Fis at the Rosendale Cafe many times. Presenting Joe was effortless because he made it that way, as he did everything else. His palpable joy in performing, celebrating his craft, overtook us. Whatever irritation or worry might be buzzing around was dispelled by his presence. His ability to bring us all along with him. And the music. He vanquished darkness and turned it blue and infused it with healing light. On those nights, it was Joe's place. He filled our makeshift temple with spirit. He adorned the room with grace and mercy. He set a table before us and called us to partake, to be healed, or at least be improved by the deity of R&B. He taught us that the blues is not just a howl of lost love, breakdowns, broken glass, and trouble, but a song of brother and sisterhood, an anthem of hope. I have struggled with the question, who am I to give Joe's eulogy? We were sitting in his living room that November morning when he asked me if I would. I was surprised, shocked. He saw doubt and fear in me, and he told me to take my time and think about it. It didn't take time, and I couldn't waste his time. I will never tell you no. Who could? Since reflecting on it, writing these words was an assignment I didn't understand until now. Joe's ability to see into another person's condition was sharp. He gave me a task that he perceived I needed. A writer often doubts his own words, but then there are teachers like Joe. Therefore, I am braced up by all of you, the musicians who shared the stage with him, his friends and fans, and the singular love we have for this man. And what about love? It's confusing and indecipherable at times. Some of us learn the hard way that it is the only way. In our meetings before he passed, Joe spoke of the love he had for so many people and the fulfillment of the music that sustained him and nourished us. He told me his life had been a full one. He said, "My cup runneth over." There's no need to quote his extensive discography, which speaks for itself, or his 30 years of stewardship broadcasting the blues break from WDST, carrying us through all those Sunday nights, offering the standards and some obscure gems from his research. He was a gifted musicologist of the genre. Joe was also a social worker. What aid and comfort he brought to people in need is another story in itself, and there would be much to tell. So, how do we find meaning? What is the last lyric of the song? How do you sum up that which you don't want to conclude? What salve is there that can glue the pieces of a heart back together? What can answer this loss? Maybe this: to go forward, take care of the ones you love, and care for the ones you don't know. Don't just pass them waiting in the park like sparrows on a snowy bench. The human family is our family. That could have been Joe's motto. How do we describe the ineffable character of a man who came to us to give more than he took? The music he consecrated us with was the essence of his being. It's been said that we all are children of the divine. I can't say I know that for certain. But then there's Joe, a man like none we've known, in this sometimes shaky, dark road experience called life. He set up a detour that said, "Turn right, joy is this way." And we will walk away this afternoon, resume our lives, as the saying goes, but differently for some of us, with knowledge that we were in the presence of an essential, very human being. I know that I will walk a different way from here on out. I will look around more and see what good I might do, not what I might avoid. If there is an afterlife, I hope it's a cozy spot, an after-hours room with a shot of comfort, a pint of redemption, and some warm neon lights. And if we're lucky, we'll see Joe playing again, holding forth, singing it out, the message of unconditional love. Welcome to Joe's Place.
Particularly at the High Falls Cafe, actually. And it's one that you're invited to sing along. The words are on the back of the program. Shadows are falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning and you see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly, cold when all is said and
of folks here today, and it's time for us to take a few minutes to hear some remembrances. We are going to Keegan's afterwards, so we probably can't hear from everybody, but Hank, do you want to get us started? Where's Hank sitting? There he is. I think he's got something for us.
This is a beautiful service. A lot of beautiful people here. It's been so well done. And forgive me for bringing up the amateur hour. 4 or 5 days or so before Joe's passing, Kathleen sent me a picture of Robert, Mark, and Tim with their instruments playing around Joe's bedside. And it was one of the most beautiful pictures I ever saw. I had to send it right out to my friends. It was just an awesome sight. Thank you guys so much for being such a big part of his life and sharing that music with him. Kathleen, thank you so much for taking me into your house, your home the last few days, and allowing me to spend them with you and Sam. That was great. Joe frequently goaded me into singing. And at every family occasion, he would bring a guitar, we would get together and sing a couple of songs together. On one of my last visits up here, maybe 2 years ago or so, Joe made me come sing with him in the choir, sit right over here, which was quite an experience, and I'll never forget it. And I'm grateful to Joe for all that he did for me. So anyway, Joe, 4, 5, or 6 years ago, Joe said, "Hey, have you heard this song? I want you to listen to this song." And it's called Go Rest High on That Mountain by Vince Gill. And I listened to it so many times with him, over and over, and he said, "I want you to sing that for me at my funeral." And this was 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Come on. But if I didn't make the attempt at it, I would regret it probably, because it was always there. So, but it's not prepared, it's a cappella. If anybody knows the chorus and wants to sing along with me, I'd be most grateful. Come right up here, Doreen. That'd be awesome. Doreen. Wasn't it beautiful when she did that Warren Zevon song with the band? So here we go. Bear with me. I know your life on earth was troubled. Only you could know the pain. You weren't afraid to face the devil. You were no stranger to the rain. Go rest high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth is done. Go to heaven shouting love for the Father and the Son. Oh, how we cried that day you left us. We gathered round your grave to grieve. I wish I could see the angels' faces when they heard your sweet voice sing. So go rest high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth is done. Go to heaven, shout love for the Father sun. Go to heaven, shine.
Yeah.
Love for the Father and the Son.
Very grateful that you are here. He loved an audience. And a microphone. And through his wretched, relentless, bravely faced illness, he choreographed his funeral with his extraordinary band and brothers in music. But you probably don't know that Joe honed his microphone skills in Stuyvesant Town. We were his first audience. Saturday mornings, we played circus, and I was a tiger and Ann was a lion, and we roared and leapt from bed to bed, and Hank and John were elephants, and we rode on their backs. And Joe, of course, was the ringmaster. Joe didn't always allow an audience. In fact, he had not one, but 2 weddings to which no guests were invited. And look at this. So he came along. But in 2004, when he got married and he called me, I was kind of mad at Joe. And I really felt left out. But Joe was intentional and thoughtful and kind and supremely lovable, and I could never stay mad. We are all sad that Joe has physically left us, but he's given us Sam and Kathleen, and they are true gifts. And you, his community of intelligent and generous and music-loving, discerning people are a trove he treasured. To end, I just want to quote from Thomas Merton, a thought that Big Joe shared with me more than once. Let us come alive to the splendor that is all around us. Thank you.
My name's KP McGuire, Kevin Patrick Aloysius McGuire, but I got Chris and KP back in our teenage years. I think Joe and I met up at the Camp St. Vincent de Paul probably in 1966, something like that, so we've been buddies a long time. I'm gonna talk like I'm not in church. Joe was a pisser, you know, he ran, him and Mal, and we had another buddy, Henry Baker, God bless all 3 of those knuckleheads. They used to run like what they called wolf tickets and goofs on all of us, you know. We couldn't step out of line at all. It was just like, all right, KP, you're, you know, whatever. And he'd run a wolf ticket on me. Him and Mal ran a couple of wolf tickets special, but I won't talk about that. I'm gonna try to play. Joe always told me I couldn't play when I tried to play years ago, but I'm gonna try to play a little.
Yeah.
I don't sing as well as this guy, so I'm just gonna mouth the words. Here's a tribute to a guy named Joseph, what's his middle name? Michael Fitzpatrick. If that ain't Irish, then neither is lamb stew and Guinness. If you ever go across the sea to Ireland, then maybe at the closing of the day, you will sit and watch the moon rise on the Shannon, or see the sun go down on Galway Bay.
I think he planned it perfectly, just the way he wanted it, whether you liked it or not. First of all, let me extend my deepest sympathies and condolences To Joe's family, John, Mary Ellen, Hank, and Ann. To Joe's wife, Kathleen, whose love for Joe was so amazingly beautiful and so simply given, especially in your care of him during the last few months. To Joe's son, Sam, who I love deeply, who has done everything a dying father would want from his only son. And to Kathy Doyle, who has been a great mother to Sam, and has remained a dear friend to me. My friendship with Joe, just like KP just said, is nearly 61 years old. We met in late June 1965. I was 15 and he had just turned 16 at Camp St. Vincent de Paul in Rock Hill, or more specifically Glen Wild, New York. Joe was from Stuytown and I was from Yorkville. And as that summer progressed and we became friends, we started to make plans to see each other and hang out in the city whenever we got a chance. One day before camp ended, Joe recommended that we memorialize our friendship. I didn't know what that meant. So behind cabin 3, where you could hang up your wet bathing suits and towels in a sunny space before you hit the woods, we performed a Blood Brothers ceremony. Me with the sewing needle. Sorry. And he ripping off a scab on his hand. We both drew blood that we merged with a long handshake, vowing our friendship and loyalty to one another. Little did we know that this youthful, almost childish gesture would truly become a sacred, lifelong pleasure. Although over the years, if we were at odds with each other, I would challenge that Joe's blood brother gesture was less than spectacular because he just picked off a scab. Whereas he would come back at me, and I had to use a needle, right, and perforate my hand. He would banter back by mocking me and asking, what kind of 15-year-old walks around with a sewing needle in his backpack? Anyway, that camp spawned many friendships, partnerships, and connections that still exist today. And there are many camp people here today. I love you all. I extend my sympathies to you and my fellow camp people as well. In our teen years after 1965, I got to meet Joe's family, his father and mother and his siblings. I was in Stuytown more than I was in Yorkville on weekends, either at the Fitzpatrick household, or if they couldn't let me stay over that night, at the Freeney household. And then I had to figure out who belonged to what playground. So, if I'm not mistaken, I can forget my keys today. I don't even know where I put things. But I can tell you that Oregon 36326 and Gramercy 73198 are the numbers of Joe's family and Art Freeney's family. Perhaps John, Mary Ellen, or Hank can challenge my memory. Is that accurate? Yeah, I still dial it, nobody answers. But over the years, we weren't always together. We were in separate places. But in our letters and our cards and now our text messages to each other, if you found them, you wouldn't know. But at the end, we signed them BBJ and BBF, which doesn't mean best buddy Joe or best buddy Frank. It means blood brother Joe and blood brother Frank. In our late teen years and early adulthood, we wound up together a lot. Joe was in Vista, Volunteers in Service to America, so the words about his giving to others is old. It comes from his earlier days as well. In Western Indiana, and I was at Marion Old Seminary in Illinois, and we would meet often in Chicago at the Kinetic Playground to listen to some music. That was the Fillmore of the Midwest. Or Indianapolis for weekend get-togethers. At the end of our tours at Vista and Maryknoll, we hitchhiked across the United States, after which we started our independent and somewhat parallel lives. We shared an apartment in the Bronx with very close friends, Mal, Henry, Artie, Kevin, and many, many others. Where the theme at this apartment, by the way, you couldn't go in there without hearing Pharoah Sanders as we entered, doing The Creator Has a Master Plan, which somehow fits today. We both drove cabs at night, separate cab companies. And there was a side story. On July 6, 1971, Louis Armstrong died. Joe, I'm not a musician by any means, but I love music. And Joe was my Dante into the music world, and he would always expose me to things. So he contacted me and said, Louis Armstrong died. When you get in your cab tonight, meet me at 59th Street under the bridge. So we met, I got out of my cab and parked it there, and he took me out through Corona, Queens, where Louis Armstrong was from, and there's a museum to him if you haven't seen it. And we drove out to Rockaway Beach, and we hung out most of the night listening to music on a transistor radio and the stories of Louis Armstrong. And that was Joe. I think I only earned $9 that night by way in the cab, and I got in a little trouble, but I didn't really care. I was with my best friend. The other similarities, parallel, we both had 2 kids, one sitting right here, Sam and Kathy's son, Sam, and my son, Keith, 5 months apart. We got married, lived in the Bronx. We actually lived together for a short period of time. We don't talk about that too much. We both got divorced and we got remarried, so our lives had very similar paths. Over the past few decades of our life, we would meet every so often for a breakfast and a walk or a day away in different places in the Catskills, or sometimes longer trips to Chicago. He with his travel guitar, and me with my latest books or poetry that we would share. I especially cherish our 2019 trip to Norway with Joe and his wife Kathleen and another pair of very close friends, Larry and Pam Delsano, to visit my brother Dennis and his family in Oslo. And my brother is here today to pay respects to Joe and to then do a lecture on geography in Washington, D.C. about where Norway is. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Our last true rendezvous, though, was Sunday, September 28th, just 4 months ago. We took a walk along the Sojourner Truth pathway at Kingston Point, a steady walk for 2 men in their 70s, walking casually, talking and chatting along the way as we always had for the past 61 years, covering all sorts of topics: music, books, sports, movies, our families. At one point, Joe said he had not felt well lately with a persistent cough and an uneasy exhaustion. He had been in touch with his doctor, but didn't know what was going on. I had left the country the next day with my son Keith. He said, when I get back, I'll check with you. On October 8th, I received a text from him that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Over these past 3 months, I found Joe to be brave, sharp in mind, as he always was, very smart guy, and dedicated to confronting this harsh reality and the terrible card that he had been dealt. Bravely, I think, he accepted his fate and settled into it. He felt that he had touched all of the bases, almost a quote from him, he intended, and he had fulfilled his life. I think Sam was there when he said that. I last saw my friend the day before he died. He was asleep under the veil of morphine, and I sat just looking at him, trying to telepathize my feelings to him. Before leaving, I rose to his bedside. I held his hand, the one that always looked like it was built perfectly for playing piano. I held it in mine for several minutes, remembering our ritual behind cabin 3. He woke slightly and summoned me closer so I could hear him whisper. He said, "I am fading now. I love you." The last book I gave to Joe was called Love by Roddy Doyle. It's about 2 old friends who meet regularly at a Dublin bar and discuss their lives, talking about the lives they lived, the paths they crossed, and the lives they had. In the end, this is what I take from that book, and Joe and I had digested it. They say cancer is terminal, and I get it, terminal cancer. I don't like how it sounds, but actually only life itself is terminal. We're all on that boat, we're all on that conveyor belt of life. There is no cure for that. We will all have our moment of departure, but the silver lining is that there is love, which can be rapturous or playful fulfilling and soulfully medicinal. Love can also be challenging, hurtful, filled with regrets, and anonymously unrequited, and painfully lost. But love has no termination point. It is endless and forgiving. Love is forever. Farewell, my friend. Thank you for the lifelong friendship. You're always my blood brother.
The only home that we know is island
From WDST. I, along with the original team and the current staff of the station, want to pay tribute to Big Joe. He was an important part of what made WDST a great radio station. Aside from the original owner, Jerry Gilman, he had the most distinctive voice on the radio. And his love of the blues shone through with every show he did. We love you, Big Joe. Rock in peace.
Yeah.